Barak the Howell, Barak the Shai, Barak the Howell, Barak the Shai, Barak the Howell, Barak the Howell, Bashim Shai, Bahashem, Rakal Kodash. That belongs to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, which you well. I want to say salutations to the hopeful elect out there, man. You Akim to Zadakim that do this thing in the utmost truth and sincerity. I'm the priest Shaman, and this week's in transit lesson, I'm going to be speaking on Turkey, Syria, and Ezekiel, the 38th chapter. You know, I think that's what I'll entitle it because that's what's hot right now, geopolitically, at least. All right, the fact that the United States had to back down to President Erdogan. Erdogan is the president of Turkey. All right, he's going in Turkey to remove the Kurds. All right, the Kurdish people. All right, they call themselves Assyrians today. They could be. All right, we know there's a lot of mixture going on over there in the Middle East in terms of who they are as a nation, but pretty much the Kurds were once allied with the United States. Not that the United States care that about the Kurdish people per se, but it was more about the destabilization of Syria. All right, because Syria was one of the countries that were listed amongst other countries on the PNAC list as nations that had to be taken over. Correct. So they started over there in Iraq and Libya, which they took over Iraq, and they said it was for oil. But when they say it's for oil, you gotta ask whose oil, because in terms of exportation, when the United States took over Iraq, the exportation of oil didn't change. All right, because the United States is not reliant on Middle Eastern oil. In fact, they export oil. All right, the oil that is affected was the state of Israel. And when you go into Ezekiel 38th chapter, you find out not only that is America ultimately is going to be destroyed in a world's war, but so too the state of Israel. All right, and Israel is causing all types of disturbance over there in the Middle East, which fits in the prophecy in Ezekiel 38th chapter. But going back to what's going on over there, is the way that the United States normally topple these empires is they have the CIA do it. And what the CIA does is they'll hire mercenaries, right? They'll hire mercenaries to stage revolts, pretty much create all types of anarchy over there in the country. And when that is finished, they install puppet leaders. Now, what happened was the same Syrian mercenaries, all right, that helped took over the same mercenaries that helped took over Libya was sent to Syria along with Al Qaeda, which is how you got ISIS today, all right? Because the CIA created ISIS, you know. And you have whistleblowers that go into this, all right? Even Edomites that go into this. When I say Edomites, I'm talking about the so-called white people exposing other so-called white people for the dirt that America does across the world. Remember, the scriptures in the book of Revelations tell you that the nations are going to hate the whore, all right? The whore dressed in purple that sit amongst the scarlet-colored beast is America, all right? Because everybody's being exposed to the ways of America, that you can't trust them, all right? That they'll join you for 1 minute just to overthrow your country, all right? So, United States CIA, which is their intelligence agency, created ISIS, you know. But what happened was they got out of control. You know, there's so many. Why the reason they can't topple Syria is there's a few reasons. One, unlike Libya, Syria got aid from different countries, so, right, such as Iran, which has interest in Syria, Russia that has its interest in Syria, and Turkey at some point, you know, on certain circumstances do have interest in Syria. All right, Libya didn't do that. Gaddafi didn't do that. All right, Iraq didn't do that. Have powerhouse stations that's allied to them. Now, the scriptures in Ezekiel says that Gog shall be a defense unto them, but not only Gog, but those that are confederate of Gog, such as Turkey. All right, Turkey is Tubal. All right, and what Turkey can do that America cannot do, all right, is Turkey is the second largest enforcer in NATO. All right, right behind the United States. NATO, the North Atlantic Trade Association, is the beast, all right, along with the EU, mentioned in the book of Revelations. It's that same Roman Empire coming back, all right? Well, a part of it at least, all right? Now, NATO was established during the USSR as a force against it. Now, when the USSR was dismantled, NATO agreed that they would not move 1 inch westward. which they did, which they did. Well, they violated that agreement. That's why Russia is so pissed off at America and NATO. Russia even asked to be a part of NATO, which NATO said no. All right, which shows you NATO is just a strategic way for the United States, all right, to move its army around. Because what they'll do is they'll have nations join NATO, and that's just an extension of the United States military. 74% of NATO is made up of the United States military in terms of armed force wise. All right, so what they'll do is they'll get countries like Ukraine and try to get countries like Georgia, that's on the borders of Russia, join NATO. In doing so, now we could have missiles pointed right at Russia at will. And these nations are former USSR nations. All right. Now, Turkey, going back to Turkey, there's certain things that Turkey can do that Russia can't, that won't be acts of declaration of war. Because even though Russia wants to get involved in Syria, they can only get involved to a certain extent without it being a declaration of war. Turkey can. And recently, Turkey told Donald Trump, look, if you don't move these U.S. guys out the way, because they're trying to get the Kurds out, which I'm going to get back to, they're going to have to eat this missile, man, all right? And President Trump yielded to that because in Trump's mind, he doesn't want to be the next George W. Bush. Some see it as weakness what he did, all right? Because he doesn't want to start another war, another Iraq war, another endless war. All right, so a lot of people is getting at Trump for that, but Trump said that that's what he was going to do before he even got elected. Which is rare what you see, man. Most of these guys are actually pro-war, so the fact that Trump did that, it's kind of like, wow, it's kind of a bit of a drawback, to see him stand out and not instigate more war. But anyway, right now, Turkey is helping out Syria a lot because what happened was the Kurds, all right, what they did was they annexed a particular area of Syria, all right. You might hear them referred to in the news as the YPGs. That's just the Kurdish guys that annexed, forgot a part of Syria that starts with an R. I forgot. I think it's Rojava or Rovaj, something like that. Rojava, can't remember. But the Syrians want it back, and rightfully so. All right. But the longer it takes, the harder it is to get it back. To make it in layman's terms, that's the equivalent of, let's say, okay, there's a lot of Latin tribe in California. Let's say the so-called Mexicans, which are the tribe of Issachar, took over California and said, look, this is New Mexico. I mean, this is Mexico 2.0. All right? Then, people will get pissed off because they started it aiding the war, all right, but they just decided to take the land over. So that's what the Kurds did, and they pretty much being just like the state of Israel, which is they're trying to not only annex the area, all right, but only have people with their views and their beliefs. So this backfired on the United States because initially the United States said, look, we're going to balkanize Syria since we can't take it over. Since they couldn't take it over, they wanted to balkanize it. Now, balkanize is pretty much the concept of divide and conquer, all right? They figured we can't take down Syria, but guess what? There's a whole bunch of Christians and Muslims and Islamists and Jews and all these different factions of people over there that all we have to do is just get them to fight against each other and destabilize it that way. Well, guess what? Even that's now backfiring on the fact that the Kurds are saying, the Kurds were not really fighting to help us, but they had their own self-interest in mind, which a lot of these people do, all right? Don't get it twisted. Even though Russia and Turkey are being a defense onto Syria, they're only doing things in their self-interest, all right? Vladimir Putin is only working in Russia's self-interest. Nobody's really over there to so-called be a good guy and defend freedom, and that's all bullshit. Everybody's over there with their own self-interest. America is really over there because they're doing the bidding of the state of Israel, and that's it. America, what the fuck does America need in the Middle East? They're over there doing the bidding of the state of Israel, and that's because Israel has a lot of puppet leaders over here in America that are what they call Zionists, all right? Christian Zionists, straight up Jew Zionists, all right? That all do the bidding of the state of Israel. You don't get with the program, then guess what? They'll blackmail you and get your ass out of there. Okay? So we're seeing that Gog, Magog, Tubal is, which these are descendants of Japheth. But when you look at those lands' geography, if you look at the geography of those lands, you get places like Russia, you get places like Turkey, are being defenses now to places like Libya and these other different nations, all right? Because what? we're seeing that the Most High is setting the stage for a world conflict. The Most High is setting the stage for a world conflict, because the reason the superpowers are using proxy armies. All right, proxy armies, when you have a group fight for your interests and you prop up that group. All right, the reason a lot of these superpowers are not getting involved on a full scale is because they know what it's going to lead to, which eventually will lead to a world's war. But they're trying to do things to hop around it. But eventually it will happen. So pretty much the fact that these different missionary groups that the CIA done set up that went out of control. All right, ISIS is completely out of control over there, selling bodies on the black market. You can't control them. All right. Turkey is coming to destroy the ass now. Turkey is coming to destroy ISIS in the interest of America, and also to get them Kurds out of certain parts of Syria. And right now, they can't do shit against Turkey. Turkey has a very powerful navy. Turkey as a whole got a very powerful army, and they're moving right now to get those Kurds out. So we're seeing the power shift. We're seeing, at least in the world's eyes, we're seeing a power shift. Just like how when you go into ancient history, how the Babylonians defeated the Egyptians, and everybody on the world stage was like, "Wow, the Babylonians are the next superpower." Like, you know what I'm saying? We're seeing the same thing now, that where the United States failed, at least outwardly, because we know that really if the United States wanted to destroy Al-Qaeda and destroy Afghanistan, they could do it. All right, they didn't drop a nuclear missile on them. They got nuclear missiles. If they really wanted to take that place over, they really wanted that place to yield, they could do it. But they don't want to do it. They don't want to win wars. All right, the military industrial complex is not wanting to win wars. They want constant destabilization. All right, constant conflict. All right, to help the price of oil, of course, and to constantly keep making billion-dollar weapons. If they truly wanted to, the United States could crush them guys over there in the Middle East. They really could, man. They got missiles. They got just so many type of shit they could. If they really wanted to, they could crush them. But on the world stage, it's looking like Turkey is doing what America couldn't. All right, which is defeat ISIS and give the land back to Syria, man. All right. Now, the politicians here in the United States are saying what? They're saying that Trump is bad for that. Trump is bad for letting this guy Erdogan. They call him Erdogan a communist Hitler version, a communist Hitler that's taking away the Kurds, which the Kurds were our allies, which is complete bullshit, man. The Kurds stole that land from Syria, man. All right, and you got certain politicians over here in America. All right, you have which have a non-intervention policy, which is like, look, if America wasn't there in the first place, these particular nations, all right, would have worked out their own situation diplomatically. All right, this is why the scriptures in the book of Habakkuk says what? That these nations are drinking of the wine, all right, which entails that democracy, and are mad. They're throwing that shit up. When you drink too much, you throw up sometimes. All right, like, you don't even want to see that wine anymore. That's that democratic way of governing the country, because they're like, look, man, we took that approach, and we see that shit is backfiring. Because what's the point of electing somebody democratically and doing things diplomatically if you could come and overthrow that democratically elected leader? All right, if you could throw our views out of the window any fucking way. All right, so all these actions that the United States are taking is only doing what? It's only fulfilling prophecy, man. It's only making people hate this whole more, making people hate democracy more, and making these nations unite together, man. All right, they're uniting together because they're seeing that, look, man, we have similar interests, and that interest is these devils, these Western devils are coming in, all right, destroying our land, all right, and then propping up who they want to prop up and telling us what to do. See, that's what's making these nations so strong. It's counterproductive to what the United States wants, because these nations might fight against each other and all that, but when you come in there and infiltrate it and tell us what to do, then that makes them unite. And all this is fulfilling biblical prophecy, man. All this is fulfilling biblical prophecy. All right? So we see in Ezekiel, the 38th chapter, taking full force in the fact that, again, Russia, Turkey, and these different nations over there in the east, which have an advantage because they don't have to go as far as nations in the west, all right, and being a defense onto these smaller nations that Israel and the United States are trying to infiltrate for their own best interest. Things are steaming up, man. All right, and again, every day is a grain in the salt in the coming destruction of America and these different and Esau getting thrown out of his rulership. This is all biblical prophecy. With that, I'm gonna give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem Yahushai, Ba'Hashem Rakakudash, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone True Well, and salutations to the hopeful elect out there. Also, I want to mention scripture-wise, everything I learned is from the apostles, the elders of Great Millstone, and I want to say a lot of the information where I get it from. I want to give guys like on YouTube, you can look up is Ryan Dawson, all right, Jake Morfonio on Blackstone Intelligence, all right. You got RT, Russia Today, you got Press TV, and The Last American Vagabond. These are just certain channels that brothers want to get into prophecies and want to get into what's going on over there in the Middle East. These channels are great because one, they're non-biased, all right, and not only two, like Russia. You can use Russia Today, but you got to remember Russia Today is set up by the Russian government, backed by the Russian government. So there's certain things they might admit that these like freelance reporters will bring out. So with that, hey, I'm going to give all praises again to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem Yahushai, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone True Well, and salutations to the hopeful elect out there, man. You akin to the document that do this thing in the utmost truth and sincerity. Shalom.